Hey everybody, and welcome to the Comment Cast. We thank you for joining us for another episode here. And today we're going to be kind of continuation of our talk that we had a few weeks ago about asexuality, where David joined us, but this time Matt has decided to also join us in kind of a reaction to that episode that aired, and kind of have a conversation about all the secrets. But kind of have a conversation about what Matt actually heard on the podcast, because he didn't hear it until it actually was released. So I did not let him preview it ahead of time. But we'll get to that.
Podcasting from the Lone Star State in Southern California, you're listening to the Coma Podcast with Cody and Matt.
But we were going to play a little icebreaker. We're going to play a little game. The not so newlywed game. Who initiated the first kiss?
It's probably me.
Who apologizes first after a fight? Who's more romantic? Who's more patient?
Me.
Who's the better cook?
That's not even fair.
Who's grumpier in the morning? Who's the bigger baby when they're sick? Who's the better dancer?
Neither.
Who's more patient?
Me.
Who loves the other person more?
Oh, I way love them more.
I'm gonna go ahead and give that one to you.
Well, I think y'all know each other pretty well. It seems like that
one of those, yeah.
pretty much everyone y'all are right on. So I guess knowing each other for a long time has worked out.
Communication, I'm telling you.
Communication. That's one thing that
all the time, but it's real.
That's one thing that we talked about in that episode. When we come back, we'll talk more with Matt and David about that episode, talking about asexuality and his response to that. David has joined us. Matt is back, and we are going to be discussing the episode, Matt. So I didn't let Matt see the episode with David until it was posted. So that's when Matt got to see it. So what was your first reaction to hearing it, seeing it, and everything?
I was a little bit of surprise that, I didn't know if David would even want to do the episode, and I didn't know how he would go along with it. So that's why I didn't want to be there. I thought it'd be best if you guys worked it out, because you can direct it and get him comfortable enough to start talking to you and answering your questions, because I don't know if we really speak in complete sentences half the time. We're with each other so much that I'm pretty sure, I don't know how much we actually say out loud. So if we're having this conversation about asexuality with you, I don't think it's going to be a complete conversation. So I think my first reaction was, oh, a whole conversation. Yay. I'm just not used to, I'm just used to you talking to me.
Most I've ever talked to in months.
I know.
Obviously, we talked about in that episode, and we talk about in general about communication, but was there anything within the conversation that we had that you thought was a little bit surprising, or anything that you thought he said that was like, oh?
The most surprising thing in the whole episode was the sex toy or gay bar answers. It really threw me.
You mean the steakhouse?
Oh, the
steakhouse.
Gay bar really threw me. Like in the
I'm still mad about a couple of those.
Me too. I was like, I got him wrong too, and I was like, what the f is this? In the actual conversation about asexuality, well, because we talk so openly about it. We talk about how he feels about it, how I feel. We talk about, does he ever feel like I put any pressure on him, and vice versa. Because in a lot of, I think in relationships, it's like a learning curve. You always tell me you feel that nobody cares what you think, or that you don't have anything worth saying out loud. And I've always vehemently disagreed with that. I always want David to talk more and to tell me how he thinks and what he feels, because I know he has those feelings because I hear them come out. I just wanted, I want him to talk to other people and say it out loud, because I think people like hearing David talk.
I don't have anything important to say, and therefore I'm not going to say anything.
Right. But I disagree.
Well, I disagree with your disagreement.
I'm not going to tolerate your intolerance here, sir.
Look, you know what? There's stairs right there.
Whoa.
We got a set of stairs and a few old-timey skates laying around.
Marriage, everybody. So I guess like one of the things that someone probably would take away from it and would wonder what your thoughts are on this, Matt, was like when y'all first were together and the topic first came up, as far as him being asexual. Kind of what was your reaction to that? Because we did talk about in the gay community, it's very hypersexualized, and so everyone is like
all right,
all
so
about
I've
sex.
known, like I said, so I've known David since he was 21 and I was 25. And I knew then David's thoughts on guys. Like, you would literally just stop dating. Well, sorry, stop sleeping with the guy that you had been broken up with for like a year and a half. So, yeah, it's really nice. It's about you, not me. I love this. We should have you on more often. But I always knew David wasn't physically most interested in sexual contact, like penetrative sexual contact. I knew that very early on. And so I guess I wasn't really surprised. And we started dating. I think I mentioned on the live stream the other night, one of the very first things you said to me, I think it was in text message. It was like a few hours after it was in the same conversation, I think. You were like, just because we're together doesn't mean we're having sex every night. I was like, I know what I'm signing up for. But he did express the concern to me about like, okay, but I don't want to really have sex. Like, it's not going to happen. Or, can you live with that? And I was like, well, can you live with me having a sexual identity? Like, period? Yeah, the answer is fine. So I think his exact words were, "It's fine." And of course, when you hear that obviously means
not what I
that's
said.
exactly what it means. It's totally fine.
I said go for it.
Go for it.
I remember it like today.
Yeah. I mean, so like, has that been a struggle, I guess?
No. Would you think
it's not for me?
Not for me either. It's been fine. So something I want to highlight about that, though, is a lot of times in relationships when people aren't having any sort of sexual relations whatsoever, there's not usually any sort of physical contact whatsoever. And that's usually because it could be a medical issue. It could be one person kind of almost weaponizes sex over their partner, whereas that's not the case. This isn't saying, David, I don't touch each other ever. It just says he just doesn't have the sexual contact urge, like, ever. It just doesn't exist. And once we made sure to rule out any medical cause, make sure something wasn't wrong that we needed to do something about, and make sure he was medically and physically okay, then you seemed fine, and you always told me, you're like, okay, this is how I feel. And I'm like, all right, well, if you're healthy and happy, that's all I care about. Everything else is just whatever. So I wouldn't say it's been a struggle.
I mean,
do you ever have any concerns?
No, but I would assume that you would tell me if there was something wrong.
I would, because I'm so good at like restraining myself. I actually am, but when it comes to David, David was always a person I talked to that I always felt that I could be the most open and the most honest, who never went out of his way to try to push me back or make me act or be a certain way that I wasn't. So I always was comfortable telling David something. So generally I want to tell David, unfortunately for you, I want to tell you things, and you're just like, why are you like this? And I'm like, continue screaming, like.
Well, it's like we did talk about in the episode about how you can be asexual and be in a relationship, but through all of that, communication is really key. Communication is key. We've discovered pretty much in anything, not just relationships, pretty much everything in life. Communication is really key. And if you have that communication and open communication on a regular basis, that really helps any situation that may occur. I also think like if you've been with somebody for a while, I think if anyone is actually really truthful about the situation, usually in a relationship, even if you are sexual, it may start off with you having sex all the time, but then after a while, it's not going to be every day. You fall into this normal pattern of just, it happens occasionally here and there, but it's more about that relationship you
What do we
have.
want to say?
Well, I just like kind of equated to like the new toy feeling, like not to like belittle it or anything, but it's kind of what it is. Like when you're new in the relationship, everything's exciting, everything's new, and but like
Right.
10 years together, whatever, like you can only like hit it from the side so many times before it's not interesting anymore. You've already been on the roller coaster 1,000 times. No matter how fun it was, it's not new. So I like people can pretend like that's not true, but it is true. And
Also, you get older and you get tired.
yes,
Yes. Oh my
yes,
God.
so much. Oh my god, all the time.
If you actually have a really good friendship or relationship with somebody, you're able to pick up on people's cues. You should be able to notice any changes or differences.
You spend a lot of time. For example, other than David, I spend probably the next amount of time is you working with you on something that the whole world can see. And so it's for example, with you, it's super important that we are always on the same page, or we always, if there's any rubs or discomforts or anything, that we're talking about them, because they'll just turn into resentment and it'll project itself in the middle of a live stream, because we talk about sensitive subjects where we have different opinions, you know. And I'm not shy about telling you what I think and why I think it. The good thing is, I think one of my strengths is that if I tell you I don't like something or disagree, I'll tell you why, not just, I don't like it. I don't cross my arms and pout. I'll tell you, but it's uncomfortable to hear, and which is one of the reasons, because I know I'm like that. I ask you, I would say semi regularly, like, what's in your head, or what's going on, or are you all right?
He does. That's a true statement.
Does it annoy you?
Yeah, but you better still ask anyway, because if you don't, then I'm going to be mad at you for not asking.
It's like one of those relationship things. You got to keep doing it, even though the other's like, "Oh, this is so annoying." But then if you stop, it's like,
Well,
they didn't ask me. What?
You
do you
don't
know why?
care now?
Do you know why? Because he's literally a cat. If you stop petting him,
How dare you?
there's
Wow.
literally a lion
Wow.
tattooed on your back. Because people regularly tell me things that they're like, because you're 6'3", you're attractive, and people are like, oh man, he's so hot, I would love to mess around with both of you. And I'm like, okay, well, one, in this theoretical world, if it were to happen, it would probably be me, and I would just take pictures for David. And they're like, what? I want him to participate. Doesn't he want to participate? I'm like, no, he doesn't. Like,
That's what I was gonna say. You do get like people asking about that, or being like,
all the time. Anytime I post any sort of thirst trap, anytime.
they're
Or
like, we don't really want you, David. Can
oh
David
yeah,
please
they
join?
want David. They always want David. It's amazing. I love it.
It's always so funny because I don't get any of that. Like, ever.
Yeah, and I'm like, tell him this. Stop telling me
We-
this.
We mentioned this the other day. Everyone always comes to Matt. Anything about the podcast, they go to Matt.
Yeah, it's very strange. And I'm like, you guys,
You're so approachable.
I'm so approachable. I'm friendly. Maybe I am a little friendlier than I thought.
You're like a Venus flytrap. You
Yeah.
attract everyone in, and then they don't know how dangerous you really are.
Yeah, my ex-husband would agree with that.
Well, he's got to be right sometime.
I do love in the episode I asked David about, did he ever think growing up that he would ever end up having a relationship? Because there's a lot of people who think if they're asexual, that they may not have a relationship or can't have a relationship, and that if he thought he would, and he was like, yeah, I did. So I love that.
So I can tell you, I knew this when we were friends. I asked him the similar question. He goes, he's like, I don't want to be married or start looking for a house until I'm 24. And like, you had a very specific plan, and you're actually frustrated when you bought this house 5 years ago that he wasn't on schedule. He was like a year off when we initially started house hunt. And I was like, you bought a whole house. You're like at like 25. I think you're like 25-ish.
I was 26, and I was supposed to buy the house at 25. And I'm not getting any younger. Do you see this?
Yeah.
I'm like one step from putting it like Elizabeth the First makeup on my face.
Oh, we were just gonna put some like Vaseline across the camera to make you look more youthful.
Oh, I was gonna do the thanks, like in Futurama.
We'll have to
So
put
youthful.
the baby filter up.
Oh God,
Oh no,
no.
that was horrifying.
Yeah, I did show him that. I was like,
Oh,
I need
did
him
you?
to stop doing that. Oh yeah, I was like, David, he's doing it again.
Like, I'm gonna call 911 for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was pretty horrifying.
Yeah. I thought it was such a good thing for you to do though, because there are a lot of people who don't really understand what they're thinking and feeling, whereas you've always been so like, we're very similar in this approach. Like when we see things, we're just kind of like, oh, that's it, that's cool, and just kind of keep walking.
Thank you, trauma.
So yeah, yeah, because childhood trauma is so bad that anything else has been like,
Oh.
So we both have some similarities in our family histories and in our personal lives that we don't have any like taboo subjects. We talk about everything really probably uncomfortably openly. Would you say? Because I've definitely gotten a few people. I've seen a few. You know,
Yeah, probably.
something about sexuality is that it is important. I think because it is such a big part of ourselves, and sexuality doesn't mean being sexual. It can mean asexuality to, I guess, what someone would consider the run of the mill, sex drive. But it's still a part of you. It's just how whatever one is yours and how you express it. But I don't know. It's so not a big deal to me because I knew when we started dating, like day 2, I knew we were getting married. I don't know how to explain it, but I knew we were getting married. And you did too, didn't you?
So why I had to wait 3 years to get that tax money?
Because I was really traumatized from having to get divorced the first time, and I was afraid of fucking it up. That's the answer.
But you could have been just traumatized in a bad relationship like every other person.
Yeah, I know. Like father, well, I guess like mother, like goddamn son, huh?
Well, we can't say it's like your dad because we don't know.
We just don't know. So watching David do episodes in itself, to me, the bigger thing isn't so much anything that he would say that surprises me, but that he's kind of leaving this. He has grown out of this, like, not doing things at all. Because you just didn't you would not have done stuff like this. You didn't want to be social. You didn't want to do something like this at all.
Since when? I've always been social.
And how many episodes of the podcast have you actually sat down and watched?
That's nothing to do with it. The
Right.
material is not the material that I'm interested in. Why don't you do an anime when I don't care?
Right. So that's why I was kind of like, well, I don't know if I want to do this because he totally supports me. When we wanted to do this, he literally ordered the equipment off Amazon that day. I mean, I would say you discuss things pretty openly on Twitter when it does come up.
Book.
You really
if
are.
People ask the questions, I will answer them as long as it's not how big my dick is immediately.
Right. Save that for at least the third question.
Right. Like you gotta has no one ever gone fishing before? You gotta lure them in before you
dangle the old worm out there.
Well, maybe I should use a different butterfly catching.
Butterfly catching. Okay.
The worm's already out there, Matt.
Yeah.
Gotta catch the worm.
The problem is people don't. They see you and they're just like, oh my god, I want to climb him like a tree, and it's just like, okay, well, can you ask him how he is first?
Like what kind of tree?
Like kind of, it's always I want to climb him not like a tree, not how is the tree today.
But I mean, he basically is going to be a tree next to me.
I can't wait to see, because you guys are like a foot apart, and I just can't wait. Is it?
I'm 5'6".
I'm not 6'6".
No, it's a good 7 inches. No, wait, 9
inches.
9. I forgot how to math for a second. I'm like, yeah, like 6. Wait, that's wrong. No. What about you, Cody? When you did this episode, so now that you've gotten to know David a little bit, you did the interview with us about 6-7 months ago. You did this interview with David, got to talk to him actually about a subject that I don't think anybody else has really talked to you about.
A couple people, but nothing like in depth.
Right. What did you think? Did you learn anything about David, us, like yourself? How was your perspective on Because obviously you work with me like 99.9% of the time. So
Well, I mean, I think and I think people probably will get this from this episode and from the other episode that we did, but really this one, I think, is that just how like intertwined and connected y'all are on so many different levels.
that really would
And
be.
it's really fun to see, because a lot of times you don't get to see that. I mean, you know, you always hear about like these. It happens in the gay community too, but you always hear about straight couples and like they hate each other and they're just like living their life and they hate
They're
being with each
literally
other.
dead
They
inside.
hate, yeah.
And here,
And so
Yeah.
to see y'all's interaction, I think is like really nice to see and for other people to witness and see.
I was scratching his
and-
back and started making noise.
like a
Sorry.
cat, right?
Yeah.
But I think with talking about asexuality, in that you can have the relationship and you can have the relationship that y'all have. And I think for a lot of people, you know, they might, again, I really think a lot of people think, oh, that's beyond my reach. You know, that I can't have that.
That actually several times. Oh, I could never do that. I'm like, your partner is not just a hole or a pole. Stop thinking of them like that.
I think it's also people's misconceptions.
I did not. I was really worried what you were about to say.
Not everything is a joke. I'm not you. Okay.
Go on.
Anyway, Rudy Huxtable. I was saying.
I call him Prudy Huxtable, by the way. Yeah, thank you.
What was I saying?
Misconceptions about asexuality.
Well, I think a lot of it is like the misconceptions of asexuality, where like I think people are in that societal expectation that you have to be monogamous and everything like that, and like everything has to be like a white picket fence, and I think that holds a lot of people back because, like you said, they don't think they'll ever be in a relationship because their expectations of a relationship aren't appropriate for their situation. Like,
yeah,
that's probably the biggest thing, and people don't obviously like change or changing their expectations or anything like that, but at the same time you kind of have to be adaptable to, like, you know, life in general. So
We will end it there. Again, thank you, David, for joining us again.
Yeah, thank you for doing this for me and us.
Of course, I'll keep my eye out for the commission check.
Yeah.
Be sure and deliver it to him, Matt.
Yeah.
And we will
next we get.
We'll be back with a live episode on Friday and a new episode next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
So, hey guys, we want to remind everyone that you can keep in touch with us on all of our social media channels, whether that is Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. You can do all of that at the ComaCast.
And we definitely love to interact and hear from all of our listeners. All of this is not possible without you guys.
And if you don't